Hello,
Prazer estar com
guys.
vocês aqui para falar
It's a
sobre um tema
pleasure to be
super
here with
importante
you
aí que a gente
talking to
está
a very
observando, que
important
é
topic,
cibersegurança.
which
Então
is
a gente tem nesse bate-papo
cybersecurity.
a gente vai conversar com vocês
In this debate, we'll
dois
talk
convidados
to
aí
you,
importantes.
and
Na
we'll have
Clabin a gente
two
vai contar aqui com o
important
Rodrigo
guests. From
Nunes, que é
Cleber,
da
we'll
gerência
have
de
Rodrigo
GTA,
Nunes.
né, que vai
From
conversar um
the
pouquinho mais sobre
Automation
esse tema
Technology
extremamente
Management,
importante e
that will talk
relevante.
about
E uma
this very
presença
important
ilustre aí, que
theme,
foi meu professor de
and a
pós-graduação na
distinguished
FIAP,
presence of
Marcelo
my
Lau, né?
postgrad
Seja bem-vindo
professor
aí,
at
Marcelo
FIAP,
Lau,
Marcelo
nessa,
Lau.
nessa conversa,
Welcome,
nesse
Marcelo
bate-papo.
Lau,
Então,
to this
são os
debate.
temas que a gente vai abordar hoje, vai ser
The topics that we'll
ciberataque, acesso
address today
remoto,
are
indústria,
cyber
dicas de
attacks,
privacidade,
remote
falar um pouquinho
access in
sobre
the industry,
LGPD, né,
privacy
os ataques que
tips, a
aconteceram
little bit about the
recentemente de
data
varejo de dados.
protection
Então, a gente vai
law,
passar algumas
some
dicas para
recent
vocês,
attacks,
falar
and
um
so
pouquinho da
we'll give
pessoa
you some
física e
tips.
realmente o que a
We'll talk
Clabin,
about the
né,
individuals
espera de nós
and what
colaboradores nesse tema
Klabin
muito
expects from
importante que é
us, collaborators,
cibersegurança.
in this very important
Obrigado
topic,
aí
which is
e que seja muito
cybersecurity.
bom esse nosso bate-papo
Welcome.
e a gente vai trazer dicas
Thank you for
importantes tanto
coming.
para a gente, da
I
nossa
hope
vida
we
pessoal e
can
profissional.
bring important tips for our professional and personal lives.
Vamos lá, Rodrigo. Vamos começar com a primeira pergunta, que é a
Let's start
parte
with
de
Rodrigo with the
cyberataques.
first question, which is
E
cyber
aí, pessoal?
attacks.
Espero que estejam
Hello,
todos
guys.
bem.
I hope you're all
Professor
well.
Lau, estamos observando
Professor
um
Lau,
aumento de números
we
de
have been
ataques no
observing
setor
an increasing the
industrial.
number of
É um
attacks
pouco diferente dos
in the industrial
anos
sector.
anteriores, né? Que o principal
It's a little
alvo
bit different than the
seria mais
previous years,
financeiro.
which the main target was
Pensando
the
na nossa
financial
indústria,
area.
quais que são as
Thinking about
consequências?
our industry, what are the consequences? Well, Rodrigo and Cleber, thank you for your invitation. I'd like to say that unfortunately, the attacks have increased reasonably in the last years, especially due to the pandemic, even though, even because the industry is very important productively. In the pharmaceutical area, in the chemical area, they are being very much attacked after 2020. And what happens now? The industry has its networks, its computers, its production systems, which are more and more connected to corporate networks and others. Our concern is that after those networks are interconnected, the attacks will increase gradually. Even what can happen is it may stop the industry. For instance, Klaben, one of those segments that are critical to the country, not only on the production but also as a basis industry, it's key for the data protection. In other situations, we're concerned about the stoppage of the services. In attacks such as the ransomware, we see the growth of those attacks uh, uh,
Boa colocação,
increasing
Lau. Acho que é
significantly
isso
in
mesmo
last
que
years.
acho que
Well
o
put, Lau.
segmento do cybercrime
I
busca, né?
really thank
Empresas que estão na
the
linha de frente,
this
na
our
parte de
segment
produção,
of production
justamente
and
para
companies that are in
conseguir
the front
um
line of
valor maior no
productions are
golpe,
being
né?
targeted
Aí você comentou,
so
Lau,
that they
sobre o
can get
ransom,
a
né? Então a gente
higher
escuta essa
amount
palavra, lógico, no nosso
with the
segmento é mais
scam. So you
tem um
mentioned
fácil
ransomware.
entendimento
We
desse
hear a lot
termo,
this
né?
word. Our
Você poderia
segment,
explicar melhor um
it's
pouquinho o que que
people
seria
are familiar with
esse
this term,
ransomware, né?
but
E depois eu vou falar
can
um
you
pouquinho do que
explain
a
a little
Clabin
bit
está
more
fazendo
about
aí
this
para se
ransomware?
proteger desse
And
tipo de
later,
ataque. Mas
and then
explica
I'll
melhor o que
talk
que é
of
ransom
what
para a gente,
Klaben
Lau.
is doing to protect itself from this attack. So tell us, what is ransomware, Law? Good questions, because ransomware, I would love to have a similar term in Portuguese, but in a free translation, it means a software that demands a ransom. Uh, Usually, it's done by a criminal that asks for a financial compensation so that you can have access to your information. So this used to be very common, turning data inaccessible. Now there are variants of ransomware that simply stop production. You can imagine a productive sector with machines and equipments and logistics, and even the emission of receipts and invoices can stop. So unfortunately, companies ended up losing millions of dollars. This happens every years in the very different areas of business. So how does ransomware appears usually a piece of software, a piece of application is inserted in the corporation, usually through social engineering. Explaining social engineering is the application of scams trying to uh, lure victims, making them access links, and after they click on it, it infects the machines, the computers, and usually all the content is encrypted. And but unfortunately, the systems can only be accessed normally after a certain ransom is paid, usually in bitcoins, making the system go back to normality. The problem is this: paying center to the criminal is not a good idea, especially because you ended up uh, supporting the crime and the organized crime. Usually, they give you the key, the encrypted key to have your access. So some measures are important to prevent you from paying the ransomware. This is a responsibility of everyone, not only Cleber, the whole society, so that we
Legal,
don't
João.
support anymore the
A gente
organized
tem
crime.
mesmo em
Thank you,
mente
Lau.
que esse
And
é um golpe
Cleber, we
que a
have in
gente usa
mind
muito
that
na
this
nossa
is a
indústria,
type of crime that has been growing a
focando em
lot in
vendas,
our
né, na nossa
industry,
área, junto
and
com a GTA,
countermeasures
comunicação,
along with
jurídico,
automation,
estão todo mundo
the,
engajados para
the
realmente
law
reduzir o risco de que
department,
isso aconteça aqui na Klabin, né?
where
Então, para
the
isso a
legal
gente tem algumas
department, we're
campanhas de
doing many
conscientização, igual
campaigns
você
of
começou, Lau.
awareness.
A grande maioria
Like
dos
you
ataques
said,
de
many
ransom,
of
né,
those
eles
ransomware
vêm através
attacks
de uma
come
engenharia
from a
social,
social
que
engineering
muitas
tool
vezes
that
vem através do
usually come
e-mail,
from an
né? Então,
email.
aquele e-mail
So
lá
that
com a sua
email is
conta,
saying that
cadê sua conta
your
ser bloqueada?
account in the
Clique
bank will be
aqui,
blocked if
né?
you don't click
Ah,
here.
sempre pede
They
ações
always
imediatas para o usuário
ask
final, né?
for
Uma
immediate
promoção
actions. It's
imperdível, né? Um
something
iPhone
that you cannot
que custa, sei lá,
miss.
10 mil reais por 2
An
mil reais.
iPhone that
Clique aqui para
costs
você ganhar, né?
10,000
A gente
reais
tem
selling
contramedidas,
for
né, para
2,000
evitar que esse
reais, for
tipo de
instance.
e-mail
And we
chegue na
have
caixa
measures to
postal
stop
do nosso
those emails
colaborador.
from
Mas
reaching the
todas as
inbox
ferramentas não são
our
100% efetivas,
uh,
né? Então
employees. But not
vai ter
all tools
casos
are
onde
100% effective. So
algum
in
usuário vai
some
receber esse
cases,
tipo
users
de
will
mensagem,
receive
né?
those
E uma das
messages.
coisas que a
And
gente
one of the
faz
things we
aqui, né,
do
é
here is
treinar
to
essa nossa
train
equipe,
our
né?
crew
Fazendo simulações
doing
de ataques de
simulations
phishing
of phishing
e
attacks
melhorando as nossas
and
camadas de
improving
proteção,
our layers of
seja
protection,
através de um
either
controle melhor de OneSpan,
uh,
que é a
with a better
solução
uh,
responsável para bloquear esse
control of
tipo
one
de
span, which is the
ataque,
protection
né?
of
E
to stop
também
those
nas
attacks.
máquinas dos nossos
And
colaboradores a
our
gente tem
collaborators machines,
sistemas de
we
anti-point
have
protection, né?
anti-point
Que quando
protections,
eventualmente o
and
usuário clicar ou
if
baixar um
someone
arquivo,
downloads
essa outra
a
camada de
file,
proteção
this
também
other
atua
layer of
para diminuir o
protection will also
risco de
act to
infecção
reduce the risk
igual
of
você
infection,
comentou,
like you
né,
mentioned,
professor?
Professor.
Esse
The
fragmentação de um
fragmentation
malware,
of a
né,
malware
ele vai ter um problema e vai
will
infectar
create
a nossa
a problem, will
equipamento, né?
infect
Pode
our
parar uma
machine and can
produção, né?
stop
Então,
production.
esse é um processo
So this is
constante,
our
né? Então, que nem você
constant
comenta, né? Sempre tem
process,
processos que
and
a gente vai
we're always
evoluindo, crescendo,
evolving
porque, como o senhor falou, né? Ó, existem
as
variantes
uh,
do malware, né?
variants
Então,
of
ele
this
tem
malware are
mudanças
produced.
de como
So
ele vai
there are
atacar uma indústria,
ways it
né?
changes the
Mas
way
eu acho que o
they
ponto
attack the
forte da
industries, but
Klabin
the
mesmo é
strong
a parte
point
de
of
conscientização
Cleber is
e
the
de trazer
awareness
ferramentas que consiga
campaigns and bringing
nos
tools that
identificar de
can
problemas,
uh,
tá? Então,
get
recentemente, agora
us,
em março,
help
Lau,
us to
a gente
prevent those
contratou uma
problems.
ferramenta da FireEye
We have
que
recently
justamente
contracted
simula um
a tool
ataque
from
ransom.
FireEye
E o legal
that
é que essa
simulates a
ferramenta
ransomware
trouxe para a
attack.
gente
And
validando
this
se
tool
essas camadas que
validated
a gente
if
tem de
our
proteção,
layers of
o
protection, the
anti-malware, o
anti-malware, the
proxy, o
proxy,
endpoint
the anti-point
protection,
protection,
né, realmente
really
atuaram da
acted
forma
the
que elas foram
way they were
programadas, né?
programmed to
Então,
work.
a gente teve um resultado
So we had an
interessante,
interesting
tem um processo
result.
de melhoria, né?
There's
Então,
space
são
for
ações que a gente realmente
improvement.
está preocupado
So
com esse tipo
we
de
are
ataque
concerned about
e a
this
gente está se
attack, and we are
protegendo, fazendo
protecting ourselves,
simulações
doing
e
simulations,
engajando cada
and
vez mais os nossos
engaging more and more
colaboradores
our
para não cair
collaborators
no ataque
so
deles,
they
professor.
don't fall into one of those scams, one of those scams and those
É,
attacks
bom,
of social
professor,
engineering. Professor,
sabemos que
we know
atualmente
that
as
currently the
organizações estão com uma
organizations have
iniciativa
an
muito grande com
important
transformação digital.
initiative for digital
Vemos
transformation.
na área de
We see
comércio,
this in the area
saúde,
of
cidades
commerce,
inteligentes, e isso
health,
acaba tendo
intelligent
vários
cities, and
impactos para
this
qualquer tipo de
brings a lot of
negócio.
impacts
E
to
para nos
companies.
ajudar, o
And
Covid acelerou a transformação
and
digital
and
dentro
COVID
de qualquer companhia.
accelerated the digital transformation in every company. And talking about our world, the world of industry, what are the challenges related uh, for cybersecurity and Industry 4.0? Well put, because we cannot stop innovation. And regarding this, if companies want to survive in a very competitive market, they must think of using Industry 4.0. So when we're talking about Industry 4.0, we're not only talking about the industry environment, it's the way we think and the way we live, the way we produce things in a way that is personalized for an audience that demands something custom tailored for their needs. So we're talking about connected industries, we're talking about intelligent cities, we're talking about artificial intelligence, and we're dealing with sharing of information in a large amounts, high speeds. So this comes with technologies like 5G. Of course, 5G will not be present in all the national territory, but wherever it is present, it will allow machines to talk to each other, allowing the setup of machines, the configuration of environments will lead to an automation, greater automation. We cannot consider this only for cost reduction, since the industrial age, we're going through an automation process. But now we have those processes ensuring a better monitoring, a better quality in our productions with less mistakes, and this compels us to have those systems interconnected with each other. What concerns about Industry 4.0? The presence of technologies that might be insecure um, or obsolete. We know that the industry environment works with different technologies that have data controls, programmable data controls. They might be vulnerable to attacks. And this is not a new concern for us because in our society, we have many cyber attacks in industries and also involving countries like Iran, in the case of a cyber weapon created by the US that prevented uranium enrichment plants in Iran, specifically in Natanz, prevented it from producing and it stopped their production. So if you want to stop a country, you can do it if you have the knowledge of this technology. And Industry 4.0 compel us to bring better security to protect our national security. Lau, you mentioned something very important. There are attacks that are no longer coming from a specific group. We're talking about countries being sponsored to perform an attack. This is something very impacting. Like Rodrigo mentioned about digital transformation, Industry 4.0, every industry that accelerates this process must bring along cybersecurity because we're no longer dealing with a geek uh, in a dark room. We're now dealing with countries being sponsored to harm other countries and an important infrastructure. Well put, Cleber and Professor Marcelo. And having these challenges in mind for Industry 5.0, we have a risk management uh, project regarding cybersecurity. We have a framework for the industrial sector, and we have a 2701, and we can measure how mature are our plants. We have this done in some plants, and we have a roadmap to do this risk assessment in other plants as well. And it's very important to measure how we are so that we can create a roadmap for security. I always mention that it's not only technology that will help us solve the problems. Along with the technology, we must have the processes. We must adequate the processes, and which is our best link. the people, and people are helping us with the
Muito bom,
cybersecurity.
Rodrigo, é isso mesmo, né? Então, a gente tem a nossa tríade que a gente chama,
Uh,
né? É pessoas,
that's it,
processos e
Rodrigo. It's
tecnologias
the triad:
andando
people,
juntos, né?
processes, and
Então, esse é um tema que a
technologies
gente sempre
walking hand in
bate no
hand.
framework, né? Esse framework a gente
This
construiu
is
juntos, né?
a
Com a
topic that we
cibernética e
always
GTA,
bring
e ficou um
in
case aí, né, para a
cybersecurity and
indústria, né? A gente
automation,
tem
and it
muito
became a
orgulho
case
desse
for the
trabalho que a gente
industry.
está
We're
desenvolvendo
very
aqui
proud of
internamente,
this
né?
work
E
that
Lau,
we're
agora a
developing
gente
internally
está indo
here.
para o
Now,
finalmente aí do nosso bate-papo,
we're
tá
now
muito legal, esse
going
tema
almost finishing
é muito
our
cativante,
talk.
né? A gente tem dois
It's very
desafios importantes para a
captivating to
indústria
talk
de
about
qualquer
this.
empresa, né?
We
Que
have
é
two
acesso
important
remoto de
challenges
terceiros,
in
né?
the industry,
Então,
which is
hoje
the
você
remote
não tem a
access of
tecnologia que
third
você define
parties.
sozinho.
So right
Você
now we
apoio de
don't
pessoas
have a
externas, a máquina
technology
quebrou,
to do it
alguém precisa
alone. We need the
acessar
support
o
of
nosso ambiente. Ainda mais com
someone
pandemia,
from the
né?
outside.
Ainda
If the
mais
machine
precisando
breaks down, for
presencialmente,
instance,
né?
someone has to
Como
come,
você vê
especially with the
essa
pandemic.
demanda de acesso,
So how do you
remoto, né?
see this
Em relação
demand for
ao
remote
tema de segurança
access
cibernética?
regarding this topic of cybersecurity? Well, the remote access brought us many benefits. You can now work from anywhere in the country as long as you have internet. This started very strongly with the beginning of the pandemic, right in the beginning of 2020, and it's now present in our daily lives. It changed the way we work, but this must be done with security. Regarding the equipments for remote access, it's important to have corporate equipments that are well configured with a due monitoring of what is being done. With, for instance, as a remote assistance, it's important to have it on days previously scheduled. For instance, the password, we always recommend that you have a token, not only a password. It's that number that changes all the time. It's an important uh, thing to add as another security, because someone can guess your password, but having that number, that token, is very hard. And, and, and your machine must be secure. Like I said, if it's infected, as I say, it will also infect the network. So those are the minimum necessary measures, because I see that innovation processes, we cannot go back. Remote access is a practice that will continue to happen and will help us in dealing with the
Legal,
informations
Lau.
and
Aqui no Brasil,
continue
a
to
gente
take care of
fez ano passado
business.
alguns estudos
Here
de
at
soluções
Clabin,
que tragam essa
we've done
segurança
studies
para o
for
acesso,
solutions
né? Então, a gente
that
viu
can
o
bring the
aconselhamento
security for the
importante para
access.
ter essa
So
governança,
uh,
né? Então,
we
quem
ratified a
acessou,
tool to have
chora
this
se
governance.
aprovou.
So
Inclusive, ele também
those
grava algumas
who
sessões que o
access
usuário
it,
fez de maneira
when,
externa.
and
Uma
sometimes it
solução
even
baseada em Trust, que já está
record some
implementado no
sessions.
Puma, e a gente vai
It's a
estar
very
ressaltando
interesting
isso para os nossos
solutions that is now
futuros clientes,
implemented in the
né?
Puma
Então, é uma
plant,
preocupação nossa
and it
também
will
que a gente
now
tem,
implement in
é
other
de trazer
plants. So
segurança
it
para
is
a
a
nossa
concern from
assistência,
us to
porque
bring
realmente
security
eles precisam
for
dar o
our
suporte para a operação
support,
como um todo. A máquina parou,
because they
a gente tem que
need
garantir
to
a
support the whole
disponibilidade da
operation.
nossa
If a machine
operação, né?
stops, they
Digamos assim.
must be
Temas
the
extremamente importantes,
operation
né? E você
must be
trouxe um item
viable.
também que é
So this
muito
is very
importante, né?
important.
Que é
You
você
brought
ter um
another
duplo fator de
item,
autenticação, né?
which
Então,
is
a
to have
senha é o que você
a
sabe, né? Ou token,
a
ou às vezes um
two-factor
celular, ou um SMS que você tem,
security.
né?
So
Então,
like a
isso realmente
token, an SMS,
aumenta um
your
pouco
cell
mais a
phone.
nossa garantia
So
que aquele
this
acesso foi realizado
increases the
com aquele
assurance that
indivíduo,
that
né?
access
E que a
happened
senha eventualmente não vazou
with that person,
ou
and that
de uma
net
forma
that password
não
did not
autorizada
leak,
no nosso ambiente,
and the
né? Muito,
person
muito
did not
comum,
enter
muito
in a
corajoso
non-authorized way.
que esse item, tá? Aí, saindo um pouquinho do chão de fábrica, dos nossos
You brought some real
processos,
good
né?
information.
Aí trazendo um
So
pouquinho um
now
tema aí bem
continue about
importante,
the
que é sobre
processes,
privacidade,
and now bring
né? É um
another
tema também
important
que a
theme,
Klabin
which
está
is
atuando forte
privacy.
por conta
It's
da
also
Lei Geral de Proteção de
a
Dados, a
topic
LGPD,
that Cleber
e a
is
gente
dealing
observou
with
no
due
ano,
to the
final do
data
ano
protection
passado
law in
alguns
Brazil, and we
vazamentos
observed
gigantescos
in
aí,
the end of last
nossos, né?
year
Do seu,
some
Lau, do
very
Rodrigo, acho que de quem está nos
important
ouvindo aí
leakages
também, tiveram
of
esses dados
of
vazados aí
our
que foi
data,
bem
and
amplamente
everyone,
divulgado na
maybe
mídia,
everyone that
né? E a gente
are
tem esse
hearing to
papel
us,
aqui
this
na
was
Klabin, né?
widely
De
uh,
te ajudar também as
disclosed by the
pessoas na
media.
vida
And here at
pessoal
Club,
delas,
and
tá?
we
Então,
must
a
help
segurança
people
cibernética,
to deal
ela
with their personal
permeia não
lives
só a
as
vida
well.
profissional, mas
So
a vida
cybersecurity
pessoal também dos
permeates
nossos
not only the
colaboradores, né?
professional life, but also the
Qual
personal
dica você
lives of
daria
our
para nós, né?
collaborators.
Eu, o
What tip
Rodrigo,
can you
né? As
give to
pessoas que estão ouvindo
us,
a gente,
me,
com esse
Rodrigo,
vazamento que
and
teve,
people who are
né? O
listening
que a gente
to
pode
us
fazer, né?
because
Quais
of
são
this
as dicas que
huge
você
data
pode
leak
passar para a
that
gente,
happened in
especificamente,
Brazil.
para não
So,
cair,
what
por
are
exemplo,
the
num
tips
golpe de
that
rede
you can give
social
to us
que
so that
vai
we
ter
don't
um
fall
impacto
into a
financeiro meu,
scam,
no meu
social
dinheiro, né?
engineering
No,
scam that will
nos
have
meus parentes, nos meus conhecidos,
a
né? Que a gente está
financial,
vendo aí,
monetary
golpes do
impact on
WhatsApp,
me
né?
and
Pessoal
my
fazendo
relatives
sequestro do
and
WhatsApp,
my
colocando dinheiro
friends, for
em
instance,
nome, se
like
passando por
when
mim, né?
people
O que você diria para a gente aí,
do
Raul?
a kidnap, for instance, an account and demand a ransom. As I say, Kleber, don't believe in fairy tales. We know that today the criminals have our data, they have our name, our social security numbers. So if you want to share data through email, through telephone, SMS, WhatsApp, or any form of communications, avoid, first of all, to give more of your data. Unfortunately, we cannot change our data like our ID, our social security number. So to avoid scams in WhatsApp, for instance, you must uh, apply the two-factor security. And this is very important for every service you do through the internet. Also, take care with payments. If you're going to pay through receipts that you receive, invoice that you receive through the email, be suspicious. And if you receive something extraordinary before you pass it on to another person, verify if it's a fact because there are many fakes passing through. And if you pass on something fake to another individual, you are endorsing something that is not true, which might put you in a dangerous situation, aiding criminality. Uh, so if you receive a call or a message, as our grandparents used to say, be suspicious of strangers. It used to be
Muito bom, Raul. Muito
something
bom.
that you
Acho que
did
isso
in
mesmo
presence.
isso é
Now
muito importante
it's a
para
cybersecurity.
nós, né, que
Wow,
realmente
very
tem
important
esses
tip
dados
for us.
criptografados, né?
We have
Pessoal, infelizmente a
uh,
gente está chegando no
especially
final aí da
for us,
nossa
that we had
conversa.
our
Acho que esse
data
bate-papo
leaked.
poderia perdurar
Unfortunately,
aí
we're reaching the
por
end.
mais
I
tempo,
believe
né?
we
Porque é um
could
tema
be
muito
talking
importante, né? Mas eu
from
já
longer
gostaria de
time. This is
agradecer
a
a
very important
participação do
theme,
Lau,
but I would
do
like to
Rodrigo,
thank you,
agradecer
thank
muito
Lau
aí
for his
a Inova, né,
participation,
pela
Rodrigo,
iniciativa de falar desse
and
tema
like
extremamente
to thank
importante
Inova
de
for the initiative to
cibersegurança.
talk
Também
about this
leva
very
muito a
important
sério
topic of
esse tema.
cybersecurity.
A gente está
Kleber takes
engajando todos os
this
nossos
topic very
colaboradores. A
seriously.
gente tem
We're
lá uma
engaging
hashtag
our
aqui, né, que a gente chama de
collaborators.
CyberAtitude.
We have a
Toda
hashtag
vez que
that we
um
call cyber
profissional
attitude.
identifica
So
um
every
spam, um
time a
malware, ele sabe onde
collaborator
recorrer, né, um e-mail
identifies a
de segurança
spam
com
or a
informação,
malware, they
arroba
know where to go
klabin.com.br.
to. There is an
Reforça aí para quem
email
está nos assistindo.
for
A gente tem uma
security.
intranet aqui, Lau,
I
que chama
reinforce it to us, and
reuniãoklabin.com.br.
everyone that's
E lá
watching
tem
us.
todas
We
as
have an
dicas,
intranet here,
informações, não
Klabin,
só de
at
cibersegurança,
Klabin,
como outras
and we have
informações, né?
all
Eu já
tips,
passo
not
o
only
convite para vocês aí que
cybersecurity,
estão
but
nos
other
assistindo,
informations.
de
I
acessar a
invite
minha
you
página,
all
busca,
that who are
buscar lá
listening to us to
cibersegurança.
access
A
my
gente tem vários
Klabin,
vídeos
search
interessantes de
for
como a gente se protege aí de
cybersecurity. We have
golpes,
some very
qual é a
important videos
postura
of
que a gente
how
acredita que é
we protect
importante no
ourselves
nosso mundo
from scams,
corporativo e
what
também no
is
pessoal.
the
Muito
important
obrigado.
uh,
Espero que vocês estejam
in
todos
our
bem também,
corporate
né? E
environment, what
vamos
is important to do.
praticar
I
o
hope you're
Cyber
all
Attitude
well.
aqui na
Thank you
Klabin.
very much, and
E
let's
essa informação que a
practice
gente teve aqui,
cyber
Lau,
attitude here
gira
at
também,
Klabin.
é uma
And I
conversa
hope this
do almoço,
information
né? Da parte do
is
dia a dia das
also
pessoas, né? Porque a tecnologia
uh,
tá aí, né?
part of
E
the
a
daily lives of
cibersegurança tem
people
que ser uma
because
consciência
technology is a
junto, da mesma
reality,
forma que eu uso o Instagram, o
and it's
Facebook, até
important
outra
to
rede
be
social.
aware
Muito
of
obrigado.
how to use it like I use any social network. Thank you very much. Thank you. I just want to complement if security, if somehow seen by you something that prevents you from working, it's a problem for society. If you want to make a difference with your company and other individuals in society, share this knowledge because it's no use only if only you have this knowledge if the society can't protect themselves. Be a citizen
Gostaria de
and
agradecer
act like a
ao
citizen.
professor Marcelo,
I'd
né?
like to
O bate-papo
thank
foi
Professor Marcelo. Cleber. Our talk was very rich. We have no more time to talk more, but the message I'd like to leave to you is that cybersecurity is not a barrier for digital transformation. It's a bridge for digital transformation. So our group wants the maturity of cybersecurity to go along with digital transformation. This journey that we're living right now, this cybersecurity works together, and it must be a bridge so that things can work with fluidity and security. I thank you again for the opportunity to pass on a little bit of my knowledge, and especially with Professor Marcelo and Cleber. Cybercrimes are more and more common and sophisticated. To protect yourself, pay attention to these steps. Be suspicious of emails that promise financial gains, inheritance, very low price products, or the help of sales websites that have your telephone number. Do not click on any link that you see in front of you, and always verify if the email has spelling mistakes or if the colors of the company logo are different. Remember not to mention corporate subjects in public areas. Avoid passing on personal information through the telephone. There are many kinds of scams that work this way, including sending codes through SMS that help criminals to clone your telephone number. Using applications such as WhatsApp, apply the two-factor security that acts as an extra layer of security. This may help you to prevent a cyber attack. Create difficult passwords. The tip is to vary between small caps, big caps, large caps, and numbers and special characters. Always use different fingers for biometrics, one for the bank and another for the turnstile in the company. This will prevent you. Do not connect to a public Wi-Fi because hackers can mask the signal to steal mistakes. To access information of your network, use the company, use the VPN to exchange information. Always use systems ratified by Cleber. Be careful not to expose yourself in social networks. Sometimes you give some details that can be used by scammers. Be careful with what you write because you might be committing a virtual crime, and that sometimes are punished. If you have any doubts, count on the cybersecurity area. Remember, cybersecurity is a responsibility of everyone. Practice it.